Reading from the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, Volume 1, Volume 1, Chapter 3, Text 9. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jagad Ishatva Mahatmya Prakashana Paraistavai Astaud Vibritya Tasmincha Jagau Krishna Kripabharam. Narada then recited prayers glorifying Lord Shiva as the supreme control of the universe. No, wait, that's not the one. Excuse me. Text 12. Śrī Parīkṣit uvāca sambhrānto ta munir hitvā kṛṣṇenaikyena tat-stutim sāparādham ivātmānaṁ manyamāno bravīc. Śrī Parīkṣit said, upon hearing this, the sage Narada was shocked, thinking that he had acted offensively. He had once stopped praising Lord Shiva's nondifference from Krishna and began to speak in a soft voice. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Taksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Pancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasade Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So greetings from New Bṛhad. I'm known to be expert at branding, so this used to be New Berg. So I just reverse the R and the U, and we get New Bṛhad. And I'm at the house, the family of the Ravals, who are hosting the Vyas Puja that myself and my disciples will celebrate. In their medical complex, they have a 3,000 square foot hall and a Krishna kitchen restaurant. Just such nice people, and I'm happy to be here. Of course, we had a long plane ride from Colombia, but every mile we traveled was worth it. At Sham Ashram, such a nice experience. And at the end, one of the devotees even gave me a gift. Whoa, it goes around my neck. I think it's a hummingbird. I don't know what it's about, but they said, close your eyes. They put in my hand, they said something about me being their mentor. But I told them perfect gift, because gifts represent love. And rasa vaisaha, that's the ultimate reality. And that's why we revere relationships more than anything else, because they're conduits for love. That's why in the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, the second or third verse, I'm not sure. I think it's the third verse. But anyway, it gives us 6 activities that are favorable for devotion. In other words, we have our practices, but we also live in community. And that's also an opportunity to increase our bhakti. And it describes the six ways in which we do that, which is didati pritagrinati, we give gifts and we accept gifts. We inquire in confidence and we explain in confidence. And bhunte bhojyate chaiva, we accept and give prasadam. I remember in the early 1990s, we had original zonal acharyas, sincere followers of Prabhupada, but without Prabhupada there, they couldn't maintain the enthusiasm and level of renunciation. Prabhupada inspired people beyond their level of renunciation. And then when he was gone, it's natural. And then these people were leaders, and Janmaishvarya, Shruta, Shribir, Edamana, Matapuna, Navadat Yapataitum Vaitmānaṁ. It's Janma Aishvar, opulence. We have to be very careful how we deal with it, because it can increase the false ego and the desire for superiority and control, which is why we've come to this material world. So if we become intoxicated by those things, Janma, birth, Aishva, opulent, Shuta, education, Shribir, beauty. So at a particular time, many of them faltered, and the whole Hare Krishna movement was in temples under the authority of the ISKCON leaders and their gurus that represented them. There was no congregation. Prabhupada didn't start congregational preaching. He just grabbed those hippies off the street, put them in temples where they have a better chance, I guess he thought. But all of a sudden, when this happened, and no one came to Vrindavan in the Hare Krishna movement except after Gaur Purnima festival. That's the only time we've ever saw anyone visit. It was a whole different world. But when this broke and the leaders fell, and it was all at once, and so many of them, they started flooding Vrindavan. And of course, after Prabhupada disappeared, his disappearance festival, people would visit a bit. But they started flooding Vrindavan. And let me just see if I can remember my train of thought. Traveling makes a man old. I was traveling. Yes, I remember it. And at that time, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj, His Holiness Giriraj Swami, of course, Burijan, a group of senior devotees, they just took shelter of Vrindavan. And of course, Mother Jagatarini, the wife of Burijan, Karta Mataji, so many people. And there was this culture that was so sweet of people giving and accepting gifts. And I remember Mother Jagatarina used to make these little boxes. She's very artistic, of different places of Vrindavan and their paraphernalia. So they were, exchanging, inviting for prasadam, inquiring, and so that culture is there. Traveling makes a man old. So I try to remember where I'm going. Usually I do remember, but you are all so kind. You'll encourage me and root for me anyway. So let me see where I'm at. Okay. Yeah. So we've been on this journey together, and we've kind of have this, I describe it, a transcendental Google map where we can go back in history and go down and kind of observe what's going on and observe it. And that's how our bhakti comes into our heart. There's a verse, I remember in the Bhagavatam, there's these tasmat verses, therefore we should chant here and remember Krishna. And then the commentators, they try to get into the minds of Vyasadeva, why one verse comes after another. So, or the audience. No, the Vyasadeva gets in the mind of the audience. This is what a good speaker, I mentioned this before, is not only concerned with speaking the truth, but how the truth is understood. So in the Bhagavatam, you'll see that Vyasadeva says something, and then he understands how his audience is going to understand it, understands often what they lack in understanding, and then in the next verse will explain. And I think that's what a good communicator is. They understand their audience, just like I have on the side here the list of participants, so I know who's there, because I'm not speaking impersonally. I'm speaking to particular people. So he knows who he's speaking to. Tasmat, therefore, one should chant here and remember Krishna. And the previous verses are describing how bhakti works. Srinvata swakata Krishna, nasta prayeshu abhadreshu, tasma tamo rajas tamo bhava evam prasanna mana. So how the whole process of bhakti works and how it purifies the consciousness. Cheto darpanam marjanam. It makes the mind clear so that you can ultimately see reality. And ultimately, reality is beautiful. You ultimately can see reality. How reality, as Prabhupada's godbrother, Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, the environment is friendly. Just like the parents may punish the child, but the environment is friendly. Things can be done out of love. So Vyasadeva, the speaker speaking, I'm not sure if it's Sutta, I think it's Sutta Goswami, and he says this verse, therefore chant here and remember Krishna always. So the expected answer from the audience is, how is that possible? How is that possible always? And therefore the next verse is given. Susu shro shradadhana sya vasudeva katas satmahat savyana vipra punya tirtanisha. That it's susu shro, that when you associate with the devotees, When you associate with the devotees, we advance by appreciation. We begin to appreciate the qualities that we should have, which maybe in a theoretical sense, like humility or something, we don't really grasp their importance, but when they're embodied in the Vaishnava, then it becomes very, very inspiring to us to actually see those qualities. And that which we appreciate, as Voltaire says, comes to us. So we've had this same journey. We're able to go into the Sanga of the Narada Muni on his journey and see his interaction, see what he sees. And what he's looking for is exactly what we look for. People who have God's mercy and can give it to us. That's exactly what we're looking for. And therefore chant here and remember how? How? By association of devotees. Their qualities, their inspiration can come to us and we can get mercy. And mercy means beyond our individual capabilities. We can come to a level of Krishna consciousness. So we're getting this view and we're following this journey. And Narada, Lord Brahma says to go see Lord Shiva. And then we get an understanding of the glories of Lord Shiva. And what happens here is Narada coming to Lord Shiva, coming to Shiva Loka, not just Mount Kailash, where Lord Shiva is expanded and serving his devotee Kavera. He comes and he sees Lord Shiva just had finished his worship. He just finished his worship. And there's a fruit of that worship, even though you're not aspiring for a fruit, is that you're enlivened. Evam prasanna manaso. Prasanna manaso. Thus, evam prasanna. The mind is enlivened. There's a sense of happiness that's real, which is an internal flourishing of the soul. And then we begin to see Vishyavani Vartante, Niraharasya Dayana, Raso Rajam, Raso Param Drishva. Drishva means taste. We begin to have this taste for Krishna consciousness, this internal flourishing. And therefore we see the standard of material enjoyment as so pale in comparison. So this is Lord. So we see what the character of Lord Shiva. He's in such ecstasy. He's just finished his worship. And that concentrated turning to Krishna, that practice, concentrated turning to Krishna over a period of time, a worship where we're concentrated, prolonged, that we begin to feel that energy of connection by relationship, by reciprocation. We begin to feel that. So Narada sees it and sees Lord Shiva because he heard his glories. The Ganga is on his head. He gives liberation. The people connected with him are liberated. He's completely detached from the world. He serves his devotees. Krishna himself worships Lord Shiva. So Narada goes running to see Lord Shiva, and then he sees him in this kirtan, dancing. And then Narada goes because he wants the dust of his feet, which is not just the dust of the feet, it's the consciousness of the exaltation and the bliss that you have from that, and the submission that the bliss of submitting to that truth in full consciousness, in full love. Narada is so enthusiastic. But Lord Shiva is also a great devotee. And he becomes drawn towards Narada. And overwhelmed with emotion, he begins to embrace Narada. And then he's in the ecstasy of rasa sambhāshana apluta, absorbed in the rasa of conversation with Narada. The rasa of that bliss of the conversation of Krishna-katha. In the purport to Nectar Devotion, Prabhupada said, some people say that Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. But what I see is a flow of nectar from the lotus mouth of Krishna. He conceptualizes it. It's so real. You know, sometimes things are subtle, but you know, like someone's angry, but you can cut it with a knife, they say. It's so thick. So that rasa sambhāshana pluta, absorbed, matchita, matkata, prana, bodhiyantas parasparam, matchita, my heart, matkata, my goal, matchita, matkata, prana, my food, my life, my air. It's this energy, it's this connection, rasa vai saha. Because this is who we are. We're Krishna's servants. We're meant for this connection. And our natural state is swimming in this connection of love with God and feeling that energy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes our potentiality. He said, in ice, there's the potentiality for water. Water is there, but the potentiality is not realized. And therefore, you can't wash, you can't drink it, you can't clean with it. But if it comes in the proper environment, it melts and becomes water. So in that way, we're like this ice in our hearts, with ego, with desire for superiority, with a false faith that if I control and enjoy the world, I will be satisfied. And then in that rasa sambhāshana apluta, with that rasa of the conversation, the Krishna-katha, the discussions with devotees, Shrindvata Swa, Katha Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hidyantasto, Yabad Vidanoti Saritsatam. God is purifying the heart. And when you are in that mood of that energy of love and connection with Krishna, and your heart is flourishing in that way, you don't want to move from that platform. And you fear the false ego. Anyway, they embrace, and then Narada begins to tell Lord Shiva all that Lord Brahma told him about his position, that he's non-different from Krishna. And in the comment, in the purports, there's those verses from the Puranas. We chant the 10th offenses. To think Lord Shiva is different is an offense. And how does Lord Shiva react? He covers his ears and he angrily says, no. Just like when one of Prabhupada's disciples said, you're a devotee, he said, no. Devotee is not ordinary thing. No, devotee is not ordinary thing. The simplest thing is not ordinary. The simplest thing that everyone could have, which is a relationship with Krishna, where Prabhupada says we can have it right now if we say to Krishna, from this day on, I am yours. Yeah, I'm writing a Monday morning greetings about a video that someone sent me about a young Christian. I don't know, he must be anywhere from late 20s to early 30s, who got his own farm and lives self-sufficiently. No electricity, no water. There's a beautiful stream by his house. And I'm writing that when I read it, and also he just said it's a plant-based diet. So, I mean, the guy is very pure soul, elevated. There's no Maya in this guy's life. He reads the Bible, he meditates on the Bible, he reads about history and learn, he has some books that he reads and he works. And yeah, I'm going off. Anyway, you'll read about it, but my inspiration was how self-created our problems are. Anyway, and then Lord Shiva closes his ears, and Narada is very sensitive. And this is the quality of a devotee. He's considerate of others. This is the quality of love. Love, you see the world through the desires of others. Selfishness, narcissism, you see the world through your own desires. That's simplicity of consciousness. So Narada has this. Narada has this feeling. He's considered, and the classic example I give is Lord Chaitanya. He had so much ecstasy, but he would try his best to get rid of that light there. He would try his best to restrict his ecstasy because they were very intense feelings. This is going to be described at the end of this volume of the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, that separation has this intense sense of pain, even though it's the highest pleasure, and we can get into that when we discuss that section. But when you love someone, what does love mean? You're focused on the service of someone else. Well, how can you be focused on someone's service? You have to know what they desire. So you want to serve someone, you have to know their mind. And in fact, the desire to serve someone is the key to understanding what that person wants. That's why Rupa Goswami is glorified, Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishnam. He knew the secret of the mind of Lord Chaitanya because of his attitude of service. So a Vaishnava is very considerate, very sensitive. And therefore, Lord Chaitanya, he would cry in the evening. He would cry in the pain of separation from Radha, from Krishna. But during the day, he would control himself. Even though those feelings were so powerful, so was the attitude, consciousness, and feeling in his heart of love for his devotees and not wanting to see others in pain. So Narada became worried because Lord Shiva became angry. Don't say that. I am not an incarnation of God. Don't say that. And we see later on in the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta when Narada Muni kind of floats into Dwarka, and Krishna hasn't got up because he's in this incredible mood of separation from the gopis and from the residents of Vrindavan, and he's in pain. And then somehow Narada coming there and asking Uddhava, you're the greatest devotee. And then Uddhava points to the residents of Vrindavan as the topmost recipients of Krishna's mercy. And then there's a discussion between Rohini and Devaki and Balaram. Are they fortunate or not? One side describes how dear they are to Krishna more than his own life. Rukmini describes you don't know how much he loves him at night. Sometimes I look and Krishna's his eyes closed. He's in a threefold bending form and he's calling his cows. He's calling his gopis. And then someone else says, I forget which one, but look how can they be fortunate? They're suffering so much in separation, which is really one of the main themes of the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta. What actually is mercy? And what is the topmost mercy? The topmost mercy is to feel your relationship with God. That's the topmost mercy. To feel that energy of connection and prema. But when Narada does that, this argument awakens, and then Krishna gets up, and then he gets into this whole thing, and then he becomes so overwhelmed with separation from the gopis, and he goes to this catatonic state. And then later, when he's revived, Narada is not coming in, he's at the door. Just see the quality of a Vaishnava. Quality of a Vaishnava is any accomplishment that a Vaishnava has, it's so clear in his mind. It's so clear in his mind that he's just an instrument for Krishna, and he doesn't really get that credit. He gets the credit of being an instrument of Krishna, not for the results of the activities. That comes by Krishna's grace. And the purity of heart, he sees his own fault. And here Narada is like that. He doesn't consider him a great devotee, but he sees what I did. I caused Krishna so much pain. I'm even afraid to go in there. So humble, so considerate. Lord Chaitanya, so humble, so considerate. And here's Narada. He recited prayers glorifying. Parīkṣit said, upon hearing this, that Lord Shiva says, no, I'm not. And he's angry. Narada was shocked, thinking he'd act offensively. He at once stopped praising Lord Shiva's non-difference from Krishna and began to speak in a soft voice. Narada uvāca swayam eva bhavan vishnur Vaishnavānaṁ chadurgamam nagudham mahima shrenim veti vigyapyapi veti vigyapyapi. Narada said, Sri Narada said, you certainly know the confidential mysterious glories of Lord Shiva and the Vaishnavas, and you expertly explain those glories. So he said, okay, all right, I'm not going to say that you're God, but please allow me to at least appreciate that you know Vishnu's glories and you can explain them. At least, please let me offer at least that much of your glorification. So determined is Narada to glorify. It's a taste, that rasa sambhrānto, that conversing. And conversing means to glorify Krishna and his devotees. So he's so eager for that. He's so eager for that. And then we look at Lord Shiva. He's not eager for the praise. So Narada's thinking, okay, let me glorify you at least for glorifying the Vaishnavas. Ato hi Vaishnava shreshta ishyate ivātmānaṁ Krishnascha manyamāno te prito vitunute dikam. The best Vaishnavas therefore aspire for your mercy. Lord Krishna has also great regard for you and extensively spreads your glories. So he says, okay, I'm sorry I called you God, but you glorify God. And you glorify the Vaishnavas, and you explain his glories. And therefore, the Vaishnava Shreshtam, the best Vaishnavas, they aspire for your mercy. And Lord Shiva and Lord Krishna has great regard for you. Has Krishna not worshipped you many times in his various incarnations and taken from you many boons? Śrī Parīkṣit said, having said this, Lord Shiva can no longer maintain his gravity. Ashamed, he sprung to his feet, covered Narada's mouth with both hands, and said, don't ever mention that arrogance of mine. I guess it's a repeated theme that our faith is unflinching trust in something sublime, and sublimity is not being glorified. Sublimity is not being in the center. Sublimity is not having power. So don't give me that. I was thinking my Vyasa Puja is coming up and I'm going to be sitting on a big seat. Am I going to get angry with glorification? Because I have a reason. Lord Shiva doesn't. But really to meditate how wonderful it is. What is a Vaishnava in this world? Has a mood of seva bhav, wants to serve everyone. The Dhanam, the Janam, the Sundarim, Kavitam, Va, Jagadisha, Kame, Mama Janmini, doesn't want anything to do with power. And boy, to go to that level of transcending the false ego, which wants everything to do with power, and to go over to the other side. Well, so Lord Shiva just puts his both hands over his mouth. Don't say that. He then boldly told Narada with surprise in his voice, just see the most incomprehensible power of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Commentary, putting aside his embarrassment, Lord Shiva pointed out to Narada the wonderful uniqueness of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord and acts with his devotees, in which the Lord takes it upon himself many severe vows and penances just to aware the devotees' blessings. So he says, okay, Krishna, what does it say? Krishna worshiped me many times. Krishna worshiped me many times. And then he said, don't even mention this arrogance of mine. Like, I allowed Krishna to worship me. And then he told Narada, just see the glories of Krishna, his inconceivable glories, that he'll perform severe vows and penances to attract the blessings of his devotees. It's kind of like I'd say Jesus Christ, just see the glories. He dies for the sins of others. He's Krishna. So he's looking at this. He said, this is his glories. That Krishna worshiped me many times and taken from me boons before to get a son, Samba, and all these type of activities. Just see his pastimes of which he takes it upon himself to receive the blessings of his devotees. Oh, my Lord is so sober. He is such a deep and varied ocean of great qualities. Even though I have committed many kinds of offenses against him, he still does not reject me. Commentary, the ocean is too deep for one to measure. What to speak of diving into it and reaching its bottom? The ocean cannot move from its fixed place, and the opposite shore is far beyond anyone's vision. Similarly, the Supreme Lord's qualities are countless. They include every possible kind of greatness, and each of his qualities is unrestricted and boundless. Lord Shiva considered himself offensive to have shown off his own power before Lord Krishna by offering him benedictions. Other offenses he had committed against the Lord were too painful for him to recall, but Sri Krishna never considers anything done by Lord Shiva offensive, since Lord Shiva acts in this world only to promote the cause of Krishna's devotional service, either directly or indirectly. Śrī Parīkṣit said, seeing Lord Shiva completely absorbed in the transcendental taste of pure devotion for Krishna, Narada, pleased beyond limit, grasped Lord Shiva's feet, made him sit down, and then spoke to appease him. He was so dear to Lord Achyuta. Is it possible you could ever offend him? Though people sometimes see what they think are your offenses, he never sees them at all. And then he's going to describe those things. Anyway, I'm in my travel mode. And when you go to a new place, it's new food. And when you go to the Raval's house, I have to admit, I didn't eat my age. Someone told me after 50, food should be medicine. Well, it wasn't medicine yesterday. Okay. Jamunajaya, anything that you...
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for class. Yeah, there's a bunch of things, but just that image of Lord Shiva, like putting both of his hands on Narada Muni's mouth is such a powerful, like, don't you say it, don't you say it, and like point out that's Lord Shiva, if anyone can't boast about, but that's such a beautiful image that the person that is could be the one that could strut his stuff and say, this is who I am. That's such a beautiful image. And something you said early on is that the simplest, where is it? The simplest thing is not ordinary. I love that. That reminds me of people when people say that common sense isn't very common anymore. And that lovely thing of that the simplest thing isn't ordinary. So you often say that bhakti is simple, that not offending is the tough thing. So I love that.
Bhakti is very simple. What's difficult is avoiding offense. I heard that once and it really struck me. Because bhakti, that anyone could offer a flower, anyone. Then the other point that's relevant to this that I sometimes say is that humility is the greatest strength because you have to resist the false ego. And we're so ingrained in that. That's why we defend ourselves. Even we made mistakes, even we said something wrong. It comes out, so we see how important that conception is. And therefore it says, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavat akinchana sarvagunas tasti, that one who's devotee has all the, qualities of the demigods. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavat akinchana sarvagunas tasta samasa. It says minorite dasati, but otherwise people are on the mental plane. In other words, their qualities may be just a projection of another way to control the world rather than being legitimately saintly. And the proof is you scratch the surface and you say they're wrong, and how the resistance comes out so strongly. So, but this is the core of the heart, the realization, I'm a devotee of Krishna. And with that realization comes the understanding that we're just instruments for Krishna. And if somehow he acts through us, that's such a wonderful thing. But we shouldn't confuse the accomplishment for our own power. In other words, you shouldn't think if a knife carves a beautiful statue, the credit doesn't go to the knife is an instrument and has some value because it can be used in a particular way, but it can't take that level of credit. So that's the same thing when it says there's 5 factors of action and only one is the endeavor. So it's not that we are something, we have a karma, and Krishna is using that karma that we have in a way. So we are that instrument, and Krishna may look at us as a beautiful instrument. But the false ego is prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani ahankar vibhūtātma kartaham. Karta, we think we are the doer. We're not. So it's such a nice that these great Vaishnavas, they're feeling that connection with Krishna. So therefore, there's no false ego, because the false ego is a desire for superiority and control. So they don't have that type of resistance to reality, to the humble position. And so, yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, thank you, Jamunajaya. Okay, anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Gail, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, a few things I like. One is probably because I love alliteration, but false faith. I love that term, false faith and selfish enjoyment and control. That was very good. And your analogy for how, we do have this potential for love, but because of the environment, so you brought in the ice analogy,
That's Bhakti Thakur and Jiva Dharma. It really is such a powerful analogy.
Yeah, I love it.
where
Love
something
it.
is there but not manifest. It's just like if you have water in the tropics, ice may be there, but it'll never manifest in the tropics. It needs another environment, like the North Pole or upstate New York. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you said this in other classes, but the concept that, the real strength is to be able to overcome the false ego, when versus, some kind of physical power or something, but it's really an amazing, or even self-control, to not act when the ego is telling you to act. That really is the real.
It's such a test.
Strength.
It's such a test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Maharaj, I was just wondering if you can just give one incidence of when Krishna worships Lord Shiva.
I think Lord Ramachandra in Rameshwaram. I don't know. I don't know so many stories. I just whatever. I don't really know. I'll look at this section. There are sections there, but I think Lord Ram worshipped Lord Shiva, just like Nanda Maharaj worshipped Lord Narayan.
Just like who worshipped Lord Narayan?
Nanda Maharaj's deity.
Oh,
was Narayan.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Gail, I was getting nervous today because traveling, I didn't think I was like really sharp and I was gonna make that little mistake. You're gonna jump on it, but somehow didn't happen. Okay. Anybody else? Say hello.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Tota Gopinath here.
Hi, Tota. See you soon.
Yeah, glad you're eating well.
Yeah. I'll have to say one thing. I'm not sure yet what my ride is back. I think Jack may go to Queens first or something. So if I need, I'll go with you or something.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for class.
Isabel, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Maharaj.
Okay. See you soon.
See you soon.
Rest up. It's only 2 more days, 3 more days.
Trying.
Rest up.
I'm trying to rest up.
Okay, good. Anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Narada is here.
Haribo.
Thank you for the class. Haribo.
Soon in India.
Hope so.
Okay. Anybody else?
Krishna, Maharaj, this is Krishna-katha. Thank you so much. I loved very much when you said that we need sensitivity for service, because we have to feel, to understand the wishes of the person whom we serve. And another thing is very important, that by association with devotees, we can get their qualities. And I have a question: if the devotee is far away and we can't, and we don't see him, we don't meet him, so by listening and meditating and thinking, can we get his qualities?
The whole Krishna consciousness movement is based on that. Prabhupada has uppercut on manifest, but by serving and appreciating, then we adopt these qualities of devotion. Yeah, Vani and Vapu. Vani is the words, of course, and yeah, that's the whole key. And service, because service has a very interesting effect on the psychology. It kind of creates a vision into someone else's heart that allows them to open their heart and reveal to them. So that's we serve Lord Chaitanya, then that's why it enters into Radha Krishna's pastimes, because when you serve the Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya, when you do that service, what you see is what you see is serving Lord Chaitanya, you understand what his heart is. He has an internal reason, a antaranga hetu, and an external reason, bahiranga hetu. His external reason is what he does for others, which is distribute Krishna consciousness, and what he does for himself, which is tasted. So that's why the great meditators that want to enter into Radha Krishna's pastimes, they meditate on Lord Chaitanya's activities, because his heart will be revealed. Okay, one or two more people, say hello. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Hare Krishna.
Amala, Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much. Hare Krishna.
Are you holding flowers? Amala has
Yes.
I think she was in IT or something. Now she has a florist shop. Okay, Haribo. Okay,
Thank you very much, Gurudev.
everybody. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu bheva.